Many changes after the American Revolution. There were social, political, and economic changes. One important thing the American Revolution did was rewrite the definition of economic freedom. Before the Revolution, apprenticeship and indentured servitude were widespread in the colonies. Wage workers were also relatively hard to come by. After the American Revolution, the opposite became true. Apprenticeship and indentured servitude basically died out. These two ideas, because of their restrictive nature, were seen as incompatible with the definition of economic freedom that existed after the Revolution.
By the early 1800s, indentured almost entirely died out. Paid domestic services also became an occupation for white and black females. During this time period, a sharp division between the economies of North and South emerged. The North relied on free labor, also known as wage workers, and the South depended on labor of slaves. Specific examples of this include the Northern emphasis on trade and manufacturing in cities such as Boston, whereas the South focused on plantation labor by using slaves. Also, after the Revolution, many people began to talk about equality in terms of land distribution.
Many people began to say that equality was the basis of freedom and outstripped all other liberties. Even conservatives such as John Adams began to hope that every member could acquire land. The logic behind this was that many people wanted to avoid the emergence of unequal social classes. People like Thomas Jefferson echoed these thoughts. In Virginia, he banned the practice of entail, or the practice of keeping an estate within a family, and progeniture, or the practice of giving all land to the eldest son. He did this as he thought this would help prevent the buildup of an aristocracy.
The Revolution also forced inflation to come to the forefront of public discussion. The issue of inflation occurred due to Congress issuing millions of dollars to pay for the war. This, combined with large amounts of hoarding, caused the price of many goods to increase significantly. After a while, many crowds confronted merchants accused of hoarding and cleaned out their warehouses and sold them at what they considered a fair price. This occurred more than 30 times between 1776 and 1779. Because of the rampant inflation, many states began to adopt policies to fix wages and prices. This failed in many places such as Philadelphia, where after price control was enforced, there was spirited opposition from merchants and others in favor of a free market. This opposed the traditional pre-war view that sacrifices should be made for the common good. This view was taken from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. Many people began to advocate for a self-regulating market where the government had no input.
Many people benefited from the change of economic freedom in America. One example were merchants. These merchants that were free from the confines of the Navigation Acts began to trade freely with whoever they wanted.
Many former apprentices gained as well. They used the chaos surrounding the war and after to escape from their apprenticeships. One example of this was Ebenezer Fox, who stated that he felt that he was doing himself a great injustice by remaining in bondage. This shows a direct first-hand account of the newfound incompatibility between apprenticeship and liberty. The new definition of economic freedom allowed for greater economic freedom for almost everyone, with the exception of being many slaves in the South.
Also, the halfway houses between freedom and slavery disappeared, especially for white men. Some of the more radical people said that the government had to regulate land distribution to make sure not too much is accumulated by one person, basically making them a bunch of dirty commies. But most Americans wanted equality of opportunity instead of position.
And this is how economic freedom changed before and after the Revolution. Indentured servitude died out, domestic labor became a woman's job, and free trade opened up along with large inflation issues.